Hello, good morning and welcome to ET Now's very own The Newspaper Show with me, Varun Hirimat. For the next 20 to 30 minutes, we'll be walking you through the headlines from the Economic Times and the Times of India. But before we go any further, it's needless to remind you that the newspapers are completely safe and are not a source of contamination for the COVID-19 virus in any way whatsoever. So if you are interested in getting your newspaper delivered to your residence, I repeat, go to wantmypaper.com. Where you can explore all the options available for delivery. I repeat again, wantmypaper.com if you are interested in your newspaper. But with that being said, let's get a move on to the top 10 stories of this morning, beginning with the fact that there's been some major positive vaccine developments. An Oxford-Astra vaccine test ignites hopes. Serum may start trials of Oxford vaccine by August. SC confirms government math on Telco AGR dues. A non-TATA may head Tata Trust one day. E-commerce numbers will have to redress plaints in amidst small units. Gadkari to Amazon. 2 labour codes may be tabled in monsoon session. IBM's Krishna dials PM to talk India plans. India likely to start ventilator exports, says Goyal. And cricket T20 World Cup postponed. Top 5 corporate stories for you. IndiGo decides to lay off 10% of the workforce. Britannia plans a 700 crore expansion. Vodafone Idea misses payment deadline. 6 sacked at HDFC Bank for corrupt practices. Oil processing at refineries drops yet again. Okay, we're now going to get a move on to the top 5 market stories for this morning. Nifty has reclaimed 11,000 on financial and IT gains. Tighter margin norms may hit intraday volumes. Brokerages raise price target on HDFC Bank. HUL Q1 may not give reason to turn more bullish. And finally, SBI card moratorium ACs a sharp fall. So those were the headlines for this morning. Let's get a move on with our individual story. And I think we're going to begin with Pankaj, who's with us here to walk us through the medical developments. So good morning, Pankaj. Welcome to the show. There are 2 major developments. One is that the Oxford vaccine is obviously showing some really promising results. And B, the second one is that India is going to be spearheading manufacturing in partnership with AstraZeneca. That's Adar Poonawala's company. So can you walk us through what the challenges will be, what stages these trials are at, how likely is it that we'll be able to develop a vaccine in India fairly soon?
Varun, this is a global headlines, of course, that Oxford research, the first data that they have delivered, and it's showing promising results. That's the sense that you get. Both it raises levels of antibody and immune T cells in the initial round of human trials, which they have done. Remember, this, as well as the Moderna vaccine, is supposed to be the most advanced vaccine, and people have very high hopes from these 2 research houses in terms of how this vaccine will go ahead. So that is the main thing, and that's why this data becomes quite important. Is it a thing to cheer? Maybe not now. It goes into the second stage of trials where it will have more than 10,000 people. I think they are planning to do it about 30,000, with involving various different countries as well. So they were looking at some antibodies being developed in some other countries where there are virus issues as well. So testing on those people. So that's why it becomes an important one. Now, Varun, always when we talk about vaccine, it's not very difficult to make vaccine, but the problem is that vaccine leads to a lot of, side effects as well. So that will be more important in the second phase of trial, when they start with 10,000 or 30,000 people, which they are planning. So that will be a substantial data which will be able to suffice that, side effects are not there. Is it doing as much as, it probably can do in terms of producing antibodies as well as T cells in various human bodies. AstraZeneca stock did very well, so hopes are pretty high. And the good thing is that the Indian company, Serum Institute, has a Pune-based company, has a direct relation with AstraZeneca and Oxford Research. They will be manufacturing them. In fact, if I'm not wrong, they would be going ahead and looking to start human trials here in August, in the month of August. So that will also be an interesting data, which of course will be a part of their research. So let's wait and watch for more development. One step closer, but not that the vaccine has come.
All right, thanks for that, Pankaj. And just on, specifically on Serum Institute of India, which is tied up with AstraZeneca for manufacturing, I know you've already spoken a little bit about what the opportunity is. Just how do you think these two companies will really be able to get together and produce a vaccine, or do you think it's too early to say that at this stage?
Well, the initial data, Varun, we would say is, Varun, let's not make this as a normal, phase of a vaccine. This vaccine itself is being fast-tracked. So, whatever happens will happen fast. The data will come out fast. They will try and do the trials as fast as they can. And the first data that got released yesterday is encouraging. So, it's a step ahead than what was, say, day before or slightly before that.
Okay, great, Pankaj. Thanks so much for taking out the time to chat with us this morning. Always great to get perspective from you. On that note, let's quickly also get you guys a quote from what Adar Poonawalla said. And the trials have shown promising results, and we are extremely happy about it. We will be applying for the licensure trials to the Indian regulator in a week's time. As soon as they grant us permission, we will begin the trials for the vaccine in India. In addition, we will soon start manufacturing the vaccine in large volumes. So Adar Poonawalla seems quite upbeat and positive about this, and he's gearing up to get into mass production as far as these vaccines are concerned. With that being said, we've now addressed the vaccine trail for this morning. Let's move forward to a very important case which is happening in the Supreme Court, or rather, which happened yesterday, and it's revolving around the AGR dues, which has now been a matter that's been going on for a year or so regarding the telcos. In the most recent development from this case, the Apex Court has confirmed that the government math on Telcos AGR dues is correct. Airtel and Vodafone Idea offer to pay dues over 15 years, while the Supreme Court has reserved an order on payment timeline. Abhimanyu, who tracks this story very closely, is with us here to walk us through the finer details.
The Supreme Court has reserved its verdict on the aspect of providing a 20-year timeline or any staggered or deferred timeline to telecom companies to pay up pending AGR dues. Telecom companies had argued for a longer timeline, whereas the top court insisted that the court cannot allow the country's revenue to suffer and the law and order to be disregarded. Hence, the court asked all telecom companies to abide by the top court's last year verdict. However, telecom companies had sought a 20-year timeline. Some companies were also agreeing for a 10-year timeline. But later on, Bharti Airtel and Vodafone Idea scaled down their demand from a 20-year to a 15-year timeline for staggered AGR payments. The verdict stands reserved. It remains to be seen what the Apex Court will order with respect to the companies paying up the pending AGR dues. Interestingly, the verdict which was delivered last year on the 24th of October was not implemented till its deadline of 23rd January this year, after which in subsequent hearings, the top court had pulled up telecom companies for not paying up the pending AGR dues. Also, the court has sought details about companies which are currently in insolvency, be it Systema Sham, Videocon or Reliance Communications. The court observed that they cannot allow companies to escape liabilities by going into liquidation or by going to the IBC route. Details will have to be filed before the top court about the financials of companies in liquidation. The next date of hearing is in August. It remains to be seen whether the court is going to pass any orders with respect to liquidation of companies or with respect to any companies which are currently in IBC, but the court finds anything unusual about those companies escaping their liabilities.
All right, thanks for that, Abhimanyu. Let's now also take a look at what's happening in aviation. And IndiGo, the country's leading airline, is going to be slashing its workforce by 10%. Now, just if you know IndiGo as a company, they have a cash-rich balance sheet. They have no debt, probably the only airline in the country which has no debt. They probably now have the largest fleet and the largest base in India as well. They are looking to lay off staff, which will also include pilots and cabin crew. While there will be severance pay for these employees, such as CTC, med insurance, until December, beyond that, there's going to be no compensation from the company. So if this is what IndiGo is doing, I can only imagine, or I hate to imagine, what must be happening at the other airlines. However, with all this being said, Krishna, who's been looking out at IndiGo specifically, is going to walk us through what this cut really means and who it's going to affect. Let's listen in.
Well, it's not a very happy Monday announcement that's come in with this note from IndiGo that says that IndiGo has now decided to lay off 10% of its workforce, and this is all happening because of the pandemic. It's a note written by CEO that's been sent across that this decision is being taken despite of other such cost-effective measures that were taken, including leave without pay scheme and pay cuts. Despite of all of these measures, the airline is unable to battle the declining revenues and has decided to let go 10% of its workforce. With this, it's also, of course, allowing to give certain kind of severance and financial packages and medical insurance, along with one-way flight tickets to its employees, but nothing takes away the fact that 10% of them are going to lose their job. And it's more surprising and shocking to come in because IndiGo has had robust numbers on its balance sheet, and it is of course the biggest private airline of the country. And to take this announcement from IndiGo, it speaks about the turbulence that the airline sector is going through, and despite of packages and financial help coming in from the government, the industry is yet facing the storm.
Okay, thanks for that, Krishna. Let's now switch gears to a Tata-related story on page 1 of the Economic Times. The future chairman of the Tata Trust could be a non-TATA. Incumbent head of the trust, Ratan Tata, has said in a recent submission to the Supreme Court. He also said that the Tata family has no vested right to the position of chairman. The submission comes at a time when Ratan Tata is understood to be re-evaluating plans to institutionalize the management of Tata Trust with an eye on the future, said top officials close to the developments. So very interesting. Leadership might step outside the circle of family as far as Tata Group companies go. They might be looking at a more professional way of running their organizations. And that's a trend we've seen with so many corporates in India looking to professionalize their companies. You're seeing PE firms come in and now replace promoters at large, prominent Indian firms. So Tata also exploring some options on that front. With that being said, let's get a move on. And Poonam's with us. Good morning, Poonam. Welcome to the show. It seems that a cheaper, faster and easier insolvency resolution process is on the cards for micro, small and medium enterprises, says Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India. So Saji Kumar is the person who said this to the Economic Times. But Poonam, what does it mean? Do you have any idea what some of these resolutions might entail?
Right. Well, good morning, Varun. Yes, indeed. In fact, what ET reports is that the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India is thinking or is mulling for a cheaper and a faster and easier insolvency resolution process. And this is especially for the MSMEs, which have been severely affected during the current pandemic and earlier as well. In fact, what the board is envisaging is a shorter time limit from the current 180 days for a faster insolvency resolution process. The time limit could be lesser than the 180 days. It would also be a cost-effective and easier process where the debtor continues to manage the business while negotiating with the creditors. In fact, one of the other point that the board believes is that it would provide a debtor in possession model for MSMEs that would enable them to negotiate the resolution with creditors and incentivize them to continue running the business after the insolvency resolution. So I think this is a very important point wherein the debtor would be allowed to be in possession of the MSME unit, and this would also incentivize the debtor to continue running the business even after the insolvency resolution. This is an important point. Besides that, of course, they're also stating that overall, the government would be, of course, taking the final call on this. The process entire is under consultations with various stakeholders. So we will have to wait and watch out for that. But if at all it does come in through, Varun, I think it would be good for the MSME space.
Oh, most definitely, Poonam, and we do know that they do need quicker resolutions across the board. So thanks for getting us that important update, and we look forward to hearing more on the story as it develops. Let's now switch gears yet again. The Labour Ministry has finalised 2 labour codes that will give flexibility to state governments on rules related to hiring, retrenchment and fixing work hours in factories and establishments, while imposing curbs on workers to form unions. The quick rollout of these 2 central legislations will allow industrial states to tweak their work-related rules and allow factories to continue production with minimum workers as labour shortage continues. So, self-explanatory, page 7 of the Economic Times. Do have a read if you are interested. Let's now get a move on. Page 8 of the Economic Times. IBM has committed to increase investments in India. The technology major company's chief executive Arvind Krishna told Prime Minister Narendra Modi over a video conference on Monday. The commitment comes a week after Modi held a similar video call with Google CEO Sundar Pichai. Chandra joins in now to tell us more.
A week after Google CEO Sundar Pichai, it's now the turn of IBM CEO Arvind Krishna to unveil investment plans for India. Now, PM Modi met Arvind Krishna at a video conference today where they discussed investment plans and India's vision of an Atmanirbhar Bharat on how they can build a resilient local supply chain. So the statement from PIB says that IBM CEO Arvind Krishna was very positive about the idea of Atmanirbhar Bharat and that he has committed huge investment plans in India. We did reach out to IBM to understand the nature of these investments, what was discussed. We're still awaiting a response. Importantly, they also discussed other areas such as work from home, because IBM recently decided to move 75% of its employees to remote working. So the challenges around that. And Prime Minister Modi also discussed the role that technology and AI can play in predictive analysis when it comes to healthcare and how IBM can play an important role here. The other aspects that they discussed include areas such as data security, privacy, and also the benefits of yoga. So these are some of the wide-ranging discussions that Prime Minister Modi had with yet another tech giant CEO, also of Indian origin. Now, remember, Google has committed a $10 billion digitization fund for India. The first tranche of that, of course, went to Geo platforms. It will be interesting to see what IBM's commitment is going to be and who the first beneficiary of that investment is. But clearly, as far as the tech space is concerned, a lot of positive news on the investment front coming for India.
All right, thanks for that, Chandra. Let's now switch gears to FMCG and Britannia. And Vinny is going to walk us through the finer details of this story in just a minute, but let me give you a little intro. According to this ET report, Britannia Industries said it will invest 700 crore to open more factories as demand for packaged food, including biscuits, has gone up. It has also exceeded production capacity, with rural markets outpacing urban sales. This is after Britannia expanded sales by 25% and went to an 8-year high and doubled profit. This was all helped by a surge at in-home consumption of packaged foods during the COVID-19 virus. But Vinny is now going to walk us through as to what this 700 crore will be spent on, perhaps how much additional capacity they'll get, and what the trends with Britannia, really are. So good morning, Vinny. Welcome to the show. What's going on at Britannia?
So, Varun, like you read the gist of the story, mainly they are planning this 700 crore investment and they will be opening 4 manufacturing facilities. And this is on the back of, the increased surge in demand that they have seen due to in-home consumption, especially during the lockdown period. And like you mentioned, it's an 8-year high. So, the company is currently working at more than 100% capacity, but obviously the demand is so much that they cannot meet all of the demand due to this high surge in demand. So because of that, they are planning to open up more facilities, to cater to more manufacturing facilities. And some of the facilities that will be opened up in these fours will be in the state of Bihar, Tamil Nadu, as well as Uttar Pradesh. And Uttar Pradesh is already the second biggest market for Good Day as well as Tiger Biscuit as well. So, this is where they're planning to open their facilities. This will help them increase their capacity drastically, especially. And also, even they'll be opening one of the facilities which is related to dairy. So that is also something that will be giving them a push further in the cheese segment as well, which has seen a very good demand during this lockdown period. So on the back of this, they will be working towards opening more capacity so they can come out with more new launches. As of now, most of their capacity is going in producing the basics, but they have only 1 or 2 manufacturing facilities which are working towards new product launches or which have launched new products, manufacturing them. So now with these new capacities, this is surely going to give them an upper hand on manufacturing more new products, coming out with new innovative products, plus meeting the demand of the market. So it'll be really interesting to see how Britannia actually captures further market share as well going forward.
Absolutely, Vinny. It totally will be. And thanks so much for bringing us further details on that story. Before we go further, let's, keeping it with Britannia, get you a quote from the MD Varun Berry on this specific manufacturing ramp-up plan. The manufacturing capacities that we have today are falling inadequate for our requirements. We operate very tight with a maximum headspace of 10%, and growing 26% is way beyond what we had expected, and we are looking at 5 more facilities for capacity expansion. So just kind of shows you the tailwind in demand that's currently there for Britannia's products. They're going to expedite capex, spend a bunch of money to set up these new facilities, and the growth seems to be far outpacing what the management had in mind, so that's always a good thing. So that was that on Britannia. Now we're going to go to Times of India for a bit, to page 1. And this revolves around the China, US and India relations. And in a strong strategic signal to China amid the military confrontation in eastern Ladakh, a US carrier strike group led by aircraft carrier USS Nimitz conducted a cooperative exercise with Indian warships in the Indian Ocean. The message was further amplified by a hard-nosed display of military intent by India, which has now deployed around 10 Jaguar maritime strike fighters. So, we're gearing up with our own defenses and exhibiting a bit of what we have lined up. So that's what that story is about. And with that, we are more or less out of time here on the newspaper show this morning.